going to, in this time of COVID, make a little video, and I'm going to choose the subject of the ring for this one, and my relationship, a little bit about my relationship to it from when I was a young singer to now, as I'm 62, and how I was taught about it in college by my teacher Ruth Packer, who studied with a woman in Vienna for several years, where she was only allowed to do one exercise until she understood that's which was required of her, and that must have been quite tough, don't you think? You can't imagine anybody doing that now. I think she had to watch lots of singers, and yeah. So this exercise was the one that she taught me, the only one in fact that I can remember, although then maybe there were others, but I don't remember any others. And she used to go up in pitch forensically from lower note right up to top C, and if I didn't turn my voice to the on the way up, I couldn't do it. I mean, I would end up sort of tight, and she used to sort of smile wryly or and laugh a little bit, because she was sort of she was a nice person, but she was like that. She yeah, because it was her way of saying this is not going to wash. So her exercise was and she used to say you have to turn it. She used to do this. She'd say you have to go through an and that's how I was taught to keep underneath the ring this open throat, and is the neutral throat into which the vowel must just drop, and the throat has to, the instrument, what I got from her was the feeling that the instrument itself was the instrument, and that the vowel drops inside. It's not that you can't sing the vowels, it's not that you can't go but it's not the same as going it's not wouldn't work for my voice. There are some voices that have more flexible larynxes than mine was, like a lyric coloratura, who can do that sort of thing and go up and it sounds nice, or a lyric mezzo in a lower level, or some baritones, some basses, they can go up. It's not that comfortable for them overall. Maybe they can do it and they can do it again, kind of thing, but actually to do repertoire like that, and to go into their second decade and then their third decade is not so easy, because eventually you kind of run out of space. Because in order for the ring to work well, it must connect, and the vocal cords must make agreement with air, and it must go underneath, right inside, and be contained inside under the ring, so that you're singing inside that instrument. I was never taught to push the sound here, or put it up through my top of my head, or do this kind of thing. I was never ever taught that, ever. I'm not saying that you can't think like that. I suppose you can, but it doesn't work for me, because as soon as I start to think to put it somewhere, to put it through bone, through something where there isn't anything, it starts to constrict something else, and I don't like the feeling of it. But for some people, might suit them. So she also sent me to this man at Covent Garden, who was the conductor of the Carl Rosa Company. She was the prima donna of the Carl Rosa Company, which nobody knows about now, but it was a big company. I don't think Covent Garden was working that much, and this was as I can understand it, this was a big company that had some really wonderful singers in it, and she was a wonderful dramatic soprano who sang Trovatore and Aida and all this stuff. And Arthur Hammond was the conductor. He had a flat at Covent Garden. He used to calm down Kabaya and write program notes and things. And he used to teach me that you start every note in the small place and you go towards the small place. So every note is like this. It's not da with a da many. It's not one long sort of bar with a. It's got to go like that. And the thing that puts everybody off this thing about the small place, or the I don't know, there's lots of sort of neat names for it. I guess the silver thread over the sound that you go to. The thing about it is it puts one off this name, a small place, because nobody wants to sing small, do they? I mean, it sounds sort of squashed up and uncomfortable. But actually the small place is kind of like voce chiusa, which is voce closed. It looks closed on the outside, but it's vast inside. I mean, it's vast inside. My tongue's just sort of released. My body's sort of come on. And I have this sort of a feeling of agreement and ease and release. And I can start my next note really easily. I don't have to worry about my jaw is going to go. I've always found that if I try to think of my jaw going down and back or anything like that, it restricts me. My jaw's got to go from where I left it. And it's more important for me to think, what happens after that? What happens after that? Than to think about where my jaw is going to go when I open it. It's just going to go where it's going to go from where I left it after I'd gone to the small place, which is actually the big place inside. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so after I left college, Ruth Packer, she went off to Portugal, sort of retired. And I never really found anybody else to study with over any length of time when I was working. I worked with a few people. The one I liked the most was Gita Denise Lavereau, who used to have this concept of sort of space inside and sort of your tongue sort of going down during. She had this sort of concept of that the tongue had to sort of fly over and then release when you which gave me the feeling that my notes had to start when my jaw was on the way open. And if you look at really good singers, when they sing a consonant or they start a note, mostly it's on the way open. They don't go they don't close for it. They make this first, agreement first. And then the mouth, then the consonant comes on the way open. And for me, it's the quality of my agreement that I make once my jaw has opened that creates my ring and creates my ability to move on. So it's not how I start the note so much, because that's predetermined. It's what I do once I've opened my mouth. If I open my mouth, and I just stay like that, and I listen, then as soon as I've done that, I've gone outside to where the audience are, and I've gone to the effect of what I'm doing instead of staying with the cause of what I'm doing. And that means that I'm sort of late with everything and I've lost control of the instrument. And the instrument is something that you do, it's not something that you hear. And you kind of hear it later and know that you've heard it. But just as when you're telling a story and you tell a story and you go, once upon a time, long, long ago, when something or other, you're always sort of thinking ahead as to how it's going to go, this story, and where you're going to take people with you. And so when you start a note, you're thinking how you're going to take through to the next one. It's not this bit that's interesting, it's that bit. And this is why I like Papanos conducting so much. And all the conductors, most of the conductors I work with did that. It's much more interesting, this bit, that bit, how you occupy the bit between this and this. So anyway, sopranos like me, and in fact everybody really, when you've gone through your sort of first decade, then you got onto your next decade, and your voice starts to get bigger, and you start to sort of feel that I found that I felt that my voice was getting bigger, and that I was just a little bit too small to contain it. I was too contained. I'm too squashed up in some way, and I remember trying this where I was thinking sort of down the middle, relax sort of here and connected. But I gave up that because it just felt too uninteresting and too squashed, and I felt that it was too compromising, and I didn't really have complete access to high pianissimos or anything like that. So the person that helped me, and this is going to sound quite weird, was Dame Gwyneth Jones. In 2 hours she helped me. She was doing Götterdämmerung, and she came off the stage and took her makeup off, took me off to the chorus rehearsal room in Covent Garden, which I presume she booked because we had it there for 2 hours or so, and she was doing the same as Ruth Packer, this thing like my tongue to make this space behind. And I went away on holiday after that for 2 weeks, and I was in a hotel room. I couldn't really sing for about 2 hours a day, learning my scores or whatever, and I didn't sing, but I sort of made the pattern for doing it. And when I came back, my voice was twice the size, completely connected, and I could do crescendos, pianissimos, and I could pretty much, it was just pretty good. And that helped me for a bit. And I should have kept doing that really, shouldn't I? But I got quite stressed, and eventually I just didn't want to sing. I think I was one of these people that mostly wanted to be on stage because I wanted to say something, whereas other people have that kind of gene that they want to be on stage, just want to be on stage. I wasn't quite like that, and that's a great thing to have, that just wanting to be on stage, but I didn't have that kind of mentality anyway. So and then I met David Jones, and I read some of his articles online, and I was looking for somebody's studio that I could sit in and watch a whole load of singers, and I recognised from his writing some of the old concepts, and he had a lot of information, and that was helpful, very helpful, but I had to make it work for me in the way that I remembered when I sang at my best. So I had to connect it up to that, connect everything up, and then just connect that all up physically and mentally, and make it in something that worked for me. So ring, like I said, has to be something that has this open underneath. And open throat is a funny old thing. An open throat is a forward throat. And in order to be able to have that feeling, you have to have a very good sense of posture to the ground through you from here. Because you cannot do that and follow your sound. You can't be doing all this kind of stuff because your instrument needs you to be grounded so that it can move in front. If you follow it, it's not going to be able to work very well. If you follow it with your neck, or you follow it with one shoulder, or you follow it about, it's not going to really connect deeply inside. And there's some sense in which a singer has to give themselves up to their instrument. You know, we want to control the ear, we want to kind of control how much breath the voice needs. but we don't really know how much breath it needs. That's the trouble. And we don't know how much breath it takes to run vocal cords, stretch along the thin edges that just vibrate optimally to make the best possible ease of ring and sound that's not over approximated or airy, and that keeps the back of the vocal cord closed, because you don't want that flapping. The little bit at the back, that needs to close, and the front needs to be stretched forward. In order for that to happen, you need to have very good posture. I'll show you what I need to do when I sing. Is I need this to relax. I need stuff to go through my hips. I need this feeling of going right down through. I need my ribs to have just completely softened. Now it feels, when you do that and you're not used to it, you feel as if nothing will happen, but it's this part of you that has to stimulate it. Like when you cry, singing is very near laughing or crying. You know that feeling when you're crying or laughing, that your body just gives itself up to it, doesn't it? And if you can remember when you were crying and you wanted to say something at the same time, your voice has that sort of movement. I don't know why. Does that, doesn't it? And as it does that, your body goes, and if you look at little kids when they cry, they go, like this, and the whole body just does that. Well, in singing, one has to be able to do that, so that the music can drop into you in the deepest possible way and has full access to you. And really what you're doing when you're singing with ring is you're allowing your body to control the air, to allow these vocal cords not to have air pushing at them. Because when you have air pushing at them, it destroys that beautiful little instrument. And you destroy, I mean, maybe a huge word for it, but something starts to grip. And it can sound great in your head. Oh, it sounds great in my head. I mean, really. But put me in a big space, or put me singing any of these difficult things over there in the school, I can't do it. I just can't do it. My voice won't carry. So I need to be able to have my body do that, and it feels so safe, because I know that when I'm going to start the next note, or when I have to go up and sing pianissimo or something like that, like this, like for instance this bit, I know I can go because I can feel my body preparing. Oh no, just as if when you cry, I can feel my body go, and it feels emotional, because that is the emotion in singing. It's so easy to think, I must be emotional, but that creates it, that feeling just creates it. And it allows your audience to relax and accept what you're doing. Whereas if you're doing this, it's kind of a bit edgy, you know? And it means that you're trying to hold up yourself by your ribs. I'm not going to open this because it's the time of COVID, haven't we got enough bad luck as it is. We don't want to be pushing the ribs, or lifting them up, because it's the middle you've got to be thinking about. And the funny thing about gravity, if you allow it to go through and not block through your legs, or push forward in your legs over your feet, so as you're going right through to the front of your heel and your back's going to the back of your heel, and you feel kind of that sort of feeling, is that from that something comes up through, if you can let that happen enough. And your singers get paid a lot of money to be able to walk into the opera house and stay grounded. and just think about what their job is and how they have to give themselves up to the music and give themselves up to taking that. You get paid a lot of money for that. There aren't many singers who are at the top of the game who can really do that, because it's such a weird thing to do, to stand up in front of all these people and go, whoa! It's really weird, isn't it, if you think about it? But it makes singing ever so easy in comparison to the other way. You can sing the other way. You can. But you know, at my age now, if I wasn't able to do that and connect it up, I wouldn't be able to sing as easily as that. I would have all sorts of problems, I'm sure. So ring is to do with the climate that you make in your throat from what happens below and what happens above, and controlling your tongue and your palate and your throat space above the vocal cords is important, and you control them with the muscles, all these muscles here. You can't hold it, they can't hold them in a place. We can't hold them. The note, the beginning of the note is the release, and then you're back and you don't hold it, you go again. Even on a long note, you're going like this all the time. You're not completely still. It's not that you see a tremendous amount from the outside, because actually when your jaw is chewing, it's not chewing very much. Because as soon as you open, your teeth and your jaw is sunk down, and you're going to voce chiusa, which is that small space here, but your jaw is down inside. So there's a big sort of opening, your tongue just releases. And this, when you do that, creates this nice sort of palatal feeling and a nice stretch down the back and a feeling of going forward. And so long as your head doesn't pull back, that's the other thing. Sometimes what singers try to do, they try to be neutral because they try to relax. But there's not actually enough going on, because in singing it's an athletic thing. So you have to know what to do one way to cancel out the thing that you do the other way. For instance, in order to do my head not to go back, I have to have a slight feeling of it going forward and up. Like Alexander says, head forward and up of the neck. And my neck is part of the curves of my spine, because your neck finishes here, your spine finishes here. So I have to have a slight feeling that my head is going forward. And if I don't have that feeling, I can't connect with my back. It's sort of, they do that in a way. But as soon as I start to go back, I'm in another type of fright and flight, like this. And as soon as I do that, I'm starting to pull my instrument back inside and trying to make my my instrument in the front here part of my posture. And your instrument is not part of your posture, it is in front of your posture. So if you want the ring to happen, your ring has to be in front of this forward thing. And it almost feels to me as if my instrument is in front. And that's why I sometimes think it's called the voice and not my voice, because honestly, it just feels like it's in front, very in front and contained inside. Which sounds like an opposite thing, doesn't it? But I feel it contained, totally contained inside, and run deeply inside. And the thing that helps me control my air is a lot of it is underneath my diaphragm, because my belly and all the tummy stuff inside here are attached to your diaphragm. Your ribs aren't attached to your diaphragm, your tummy is. And it sort of, it goes across here, and then it has membrane that goes down the side to separate your tummy stuff from your ribs. And when your ribs come down, your tummy must come up with that full feeling. If you're pulling in your tummy and doing this, then you're pulling your diaphragm away from the wall, and that stops it. If you lift your ribs, you've stopped it. If you do this, you've stopped it. The body, and this is the magic, the amazing magic of the ring, the body knows how much breath the next note needs. It knows. Don't ask me how it knows. And often as you're singing, I think when I'm not singing very well, I'm thinking too hard of the next note and trying to sing the music. Whereas the tune is easy. We all know what the tune is. I mean, we're musicians. You only have to play a tune. We know the tune. That's it. It's the tune. So it's not the tune that you've got to think about. It's how you're occupying that note physically, how your instrument is going through, how you're making that tell the story. So it's almost how you take the breath, how you breathed in and thought about the next phrase. Once you take the breath and you take in that shape and that attention, then that's it, set for the next phrase, and then it's gone. But then during that one you must be thinking, how's the next one going to work? It's always an organic thing, like we do when we speak. And that is much more going to make the ring happen than thinking of the note. So automatically, the note is a light thing, just drops in, easily drops in, with my ring and everything all set for it. And I remember a long time ago, this interview between Zubin Mehta and Pavarotti, it made a deep impression on me, this interview that I looked at, I watched. Because Zubin said to Pavarotti, I always know when you're going to move. I can always tell when to put my baton down because I can hear it. And with really good singers, lots of singers, you can hear that. You can hear I'm going to go. You can hear I'm going to move. And that's how it should be. You should be kind of trying to take the audience on with you, not surprise them with the next note. It shouldn't be like, oh, it should be, oh, there's going to be something nice going to happen now. And you're taking people on. And there should be this balance between the ring and the depth, so that it just happily hits here, and the whole thing prepared for it above the throat, and rings without you having to push the ring anywhere. It's just, and with the breath automatically working. And the tummy, it doesn't pull in, it doesn't push out, it's an all-round thing. And these muscles here, across here, are not loose. You have strong tummy muscles which are meant to be there to contain your tummy, to protect it and contain it. And you don't need to push through that, push your tummy out. It's this feeling of grunting, really. But as I say, if you can manage to find your, over time, this ability to go down through and give yourself up to it, it's a magic thing. It's such a magic thing.